My name is Evan Priest, and I'm giving a presentation on Maori success in secondary education. This presentation is based off of research done by Lewis Stevens, who is at Curtin University in Perth, Australia. In New Zealand, socioeconomic status is generally the same for Maori secondary education students. In this research, Lewis found that SES is not a factor in school achievement because there's a lot of variation in student achievement. So he asked some questions about what factors and systems already exist in these New Zealand schools to enhance Maori achievement, and how do these systems correlate to the traditional Maori system of educating youth. So traditional Maori education has about 7 characteristics or elements that Stevens identified. The first is a spiritual foundation of society, which means that there's no boundary between the cosmos and the gods and the physical world that we live in. The second is that education is practical and centered around the community, and the community is involved in the education of the youth. The third is that education began in the home with the grandparents and weaker members of the extended family. The fourth is that education had gradual assessment and that things were done incrementally, and then students began to specialize based off of what were believed to be divinely given talents. The fifth is that potential is achieved by serving the gods and one's extended family. The sixth is that identity comes from one's standing in the community and how a person was serving the community. The seventh is that there were certain religious rituals and ceremonies that in turn created a sense of individual accountability and potential within the community. Stevens found that there are 4 factors that increase success in these Maori students. The first is family involvement. And these could be things from family practices that families were doing in the home that increase youth success, like speaking English in the home and going to the library or something like that. And because families are involved more, they increase expectation of achievement in their students, and they also increase school accountability because the schools have to tell the parents what they're doing. The second thing that he identified is that schools have to contribute to training teachers in a concept that Stevens calls cultural responsiveness. These prevent, cultural responsiveness prevents erosion of Maori culture that has been present in New Zealand, and it helps teachers overcome perhaps their own learned assumptions about other cultures. It also puts more emphasis on teaching teachers' responsibility and things like that. The third is that school-community partnerships are important because they bridge gaps in socioeconomic statuses that may exist in the community by bringing resources to the student in the school, so the whole community is investing in the education of all the youth. Also, the school staff becomes connected with members with individuals in the community. The last is this concept of internal motivation and identity. This means that students become competent in certain skills by having good teachers that are culturally responsive, which increases positive feelings in the student and motivation to do well and to be disciplined and to reach goals. The next thing is that as a result of successful cultural responsiveness, students in diverse classrooms are encouraged to have a cultural identity. So these correlate to some Maori traditions that have already existed in the past, things like family involvement and participation and community investment in schools and youth, as well as students feeling like they have a place in the community by having all of this human capital involved in their education is really beneficial to students and have existed already in the Maori community. Stevens' overall theme of cultural responsiveness is really important because, especially if you're teaching or helping out in a diverse classroom such as here in Laie Elementary School, it's important to be aware that students are coming from very diverse backgrounds with very different ways of viewing education and the way that education has been done in that culture for centuries. And I think that the more responsive and aware that students and teachers become of their surroundings, that I think that will open up a lot of resources and ultimately help the student in the long run.